Welcome to the Small Giants Fishbowl. This topic is Managing Millennials. Managing Millennials is one of the hottest topics affecting the values-driven business leader. Shoot, for every business leader. There's no escaping it, as this generation is the future of your company. Join Erin Walter of New Fork as she walks you through how they set up a workforce that was raised on Saved by the Bell reruns to achieve their best year yet, and be ready to grow even more in years to come. Okay, here we go.
My name is Jimmy Kalb. I'm the president of OptiFuse. We make circuit protection devices. We're based out of San Diego, California, and great to be here.
Great, thanks, Jimmy. Candace.
I'm Candace Gooch. I work for Pegasus Logistics Group. We are in the freight and logistics business, and we are in the Fort Worth area.
Great. Tracy?
My name is Tracy Mills. I work for Data Connect Corporation out of Denver. I work remote from Florida from my home, and we are an event service solution company, from anything from software to data to equipment for any event, whether it's general trade show or beyond, such as associations or general trade shows such as food shows. So,
great, thank you, Tracy. Welcome, Chris.
I'm Chris Manley with Ingenious. We're a digital marketing firm for mostly small to mid-sized companies, and we're based in Greenville, South Carolina.
Great, Brian, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm having trouble with my computer, but I've got my phone connected. So my name's Brian Kosa. I'm from Northwest New Jersey. I'm a health club consultant and consult with different businesses on club culture and that part of how they operate.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Again, welcome. I think this is yours and Tracy's first Fishbowl. So I hope you enjoy the conversation, and we'll be looking to y'all to ask the most questions. So, but to go ahead and get started with today's discussion, I'd like to introduce to you Erin Walter, CEO of New Fork, which is a marketing company in the catering space based out of Elk Grove Village, Illinois. So, Erin, go ahead, take it away.
Hello, all of you. Nice to see you, Chris.
Good to see you too.
Seen you in a while. As Glenn said, I am a co-founder of New Fork, so I have a partner, Jamie Pritcher, and we're a marketing company that operates in the catering industry. 90% of our my personal background, I played soccer pretty much all of my life, and when that career came to a halt, I looked to entrepreneurship to kind of fill that void. So it went from one to the other, and that's kind of all there is to my background. New Fork itself started as an internal marketing department at a Chicago catering company called Tasty Catering, which is also a Small Giants member, and kind of got to a point where we realized we had a lot of really talented people that had come through as interns that were in college studying marketing, and we were going to lose them if we didn't do something, because a catering company can't afford to hire and to keep that many people. So we decided to start our own company, and didn't know at the time we were going to focus only on catering, but obviously we knew we had quite the background. Tasty Catering was known in the industry as having one of the best marketing. Everybody kind of looked to them as being the leaders. So we kind of had that as our portfolio. We also figured if that didn't work for us, Tom, the CEO of Tasty's, got a wide enough network. There had to be plenty of people in there that needed marketing help. So just decided to kind of take a leap. And that was about 5 years ago. And we finally, I'm proud to say, finally have made some money. Lost lots of it, but finally made some money. So that was an exciting year last year to finally not be in the red at the end of the year. We have a team of about 12 people right now. It oscillates, but I'd say we're at about 12, 7 of which are full-time. And then the others they're regulars and constants, but one of them's in college. 2 of them are women's professional cyclists. So they race and they do all of that stuff, and they work for us in their downtime. and an editor who does a bunch of other things as well. So they're regular members of our team. They're just not full-time staff. And 7 of us are actually in the office, and the rest are across the country. So we're kind of a little bit remote. But in general, we focus, like I said, multiple times on catering, but it's a little bit more than that too. We like to look at it as a multi-dimensional marketing company because we help our clients with a lot more than just catering and a lot more than just marketing. So we as entrepreneurs understand the struggle of other entrepreneurs. We also understand the ins and outs of the catering business when it comes to culinary and operations and logistics and internal communications with temporary staff and all kinds of issues like that. So we're more than just a marketing company to our clients. We're kind of, we're consultants in a lot of different ways as well, but we like to say that we help real caterers grow profitable businesses, and that's kind of why we're in the business that we're in. So that's the background on New Floric itself. Our team is completely comprised of millennials. So we actually have our sales, the newest person we added is a salesperson, and she's at the top end of the spectrum. And then our youngest is literally at the very bottom end of that range. And she works for us part-time, and she's in college. And the rest, I'd probably say right now are between 25 and 27. So we have a really, really young team. And some of what Glenn and I were talking about, it becomes a little difficult to distinguish between what are some of the, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Real quick, how do you define millennials? You said on the top end and the low end. Could you give me the current range of ages where they are today?
Sure. So the research that I had just done, and obviously there's plenty of answers to that, but the research that I had just done said 18 to 34, 35, somewhere in that range. So that was 2015. So maybe it's now 19 to 35, but in that range.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. It's kind of hard sometimes to look at what are the benefits of being a values-driven business, of being a small giant and treating your people in the right way, and what are some of the benefits of having millennials, or I guess you could say the challenges. So because my entire team is in one age group, it's kind of hard to tell what's cause and effect and what really makes a difference. But come to realize that there are a lot of challenges with this generation of people, but I think it's also just a lot of challenges with, a lot of them, it's their first job out of college. And, saying that it's the fact that they're a millennial versus the fact that they're just inexperienced, like what is truly the cause of some of these issues. And these issues that you come across that people say they have troubles with people, whether it's the sense of entitlement or whether it's the sense that they always want more, what's the driving force behind that? Because trying to understand what's at the base of that issue allows you to then turn that quote unquote challenge into a benefit for your company. And I've got one good story I'd say that I'd tell from one employee that's pretty much like a case in point on this. And then the rest of what I'd like to do is just kind of have more of a general discussion about it, because like I said, I think there are a lot of things to talk about, and a lot of it, in my opinion, comes down to what we do as leaders versus them being challenges with a generation in general. We've got this employee named Michael, and he started with us maybe a year and a half into existence. So it's been like 3.5 years with us. It was his first job out of college. His mom worked I think she's an underwriter. So she worked in corporate America, and he's a self-learner. So he didn't go to school for all the web developing and the designing and all the stuff he does. He taught himself all of that stuff online. He likes to read, he likes to research. And so he came into this job, I think, with this notion of what corporate America is like and what working for a business is like. And, there was one point he actually tried to negotiate something with us. And we looked at him and we said, stop, like, we don't negotiate. You tell us what you want and we're going to do our best to help you get there. So he, all along, we would explain what our culture is like, and we'd explain how we treat people, and we'd explain where we're going as a company. And we got a lot of pushback from him, a lot of, well, are you sure that's this way? And it doesn't look like it's this way. And, your role and Jamie's role are crossing too much. You guys aren't doing the right thing. And, how do I know that you really mean these things? There's a lot of distrust in everything we felt from him. He challenged us every single step of the way. And it over like a course of probably a year and a half, tons of challenges of, well, that's not the way it should be. It should be done this way. And you guys are doing it the wrong way. And why are you doing it this way? And I don't believe that what you guys are saying is what you mean. And it came to a point where it got really trying. I mean, I took lots of walks outside down the street with him, lots of conversations about like, what is your struggle and what is your frustration, and help me understand what's going through your minds and what you're feeling. And these conversations, it felt like it could have just hit a tape recorder. It was like over and over again, no matter how much we worked with him on trying to understand these things just kept coming up of, well, I don't want to be salaried because I don't want to have to work extra hours. Like if I only am going to work, I don't want to have to work an extra 10 hours just for my money. Like if I only have 30 hours worth of work, I want to be able to do other things. And, if I work 50 hours, then, like something about being paid for 50 hours instead of 40. And just a lot of things when it came to money and compensation, and this feeling of, well, I can go work for a startup that makes a technology startup that makes millions of dollars and make tons of money. And how am I going to spend my youth when my prime years when I can slave away? How do I benefit from that? So it got really trying to the point that I actually at a Small Giants conference had a conversation with Paul Spiegelman about it. And I said, Paul, can you help me try and get to the bottom of this issue? Is this someone I should keep? Is this someone I should let go? It seems like it's right, but I'm having so many troubles and wasting so much time working with him. And Paul's advice was to fire him. Said, I really think you should let him go. He just doesn't seem like he's right, and you might as well just cut the ties and find someone new. But I just didn't feel like it was the right thing to do, and just continued to work with him. And probably about, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago, we had this moment where he was working on a side business all by himself and working his hours late at night and on the weekends. And we were talking about helping him try to grow his own business and giving him advice on how to start it and how to think through it. And I said, Michael, what's going on? I haven't heard about your business in a while. And he goes, I decided I don't want to do that anymore. I said, okay, you just spent like 6 months working on this. Why don't you want to do this anymore? And he said, well, if I'm going to spend, my free time outside of work on something, I'd want it to be something that benefits the company and benefits, the people that like our team, and benefits, the rest of the partners and investors. Like I want it to benefit the team. And right now what I'm building is only benefiting me. So like I want to be able to use that time and that brain power to better the business. And I about fell out of my chair. I was like, this is the guy who's so selfish and only wants stuff for himself. And now all of a sudden he wants to only do things that are best for the team. And it's just all of a sudden like the switch went off, and everything that we had tried to teach and we worked with him on, suddenly it sank in. And it was like he understood and he got what we were doing. And now it's to the point that we're actually changing some of our culture and some of our processes in a big and exciting way. And he's the one driving it all. He's the one that's spending all the time working on the strategy and the vision and the culture, and he's really passionate about it. And he's helping us move the company in a direction, which, to be completely transparent, without him, I don't know that we'd be going. And I can say without a doubt, it's the right direction to go. So we've managed to gain in him an employee that we really couldn't live without. And in the beginning, it was all literally textbook issues with millennials. And it was all these things you read about and the problems that you face. And it's just a matter of, with him, it was a matter of spending that time and working with him. And while it seemed like it was never going to end and it was adding nothing but stress, like literally I felt like I had an ulcer at times. It came to realize that with all of those issues, it's really how we as leaders deal with them, that whether they turn into issues or whether they turn into benefits. And that's exactly what happened in this case. What was an issue is now something that's propelling our company forward and turned into a huge asset for us as a business. And it was all in the time and effort that Jamie and I put into working with him and developing him and coaching him, instead of just looking at it and saying, you know what, like he's causing us problems. He's not right. Let's get a new web developer in here. So he's kind of the case in point. And, we've had a bunch of, there's a bunch of things that we do that I think pretty much all Small Giants companies do in terms of transparency and just being very forward with whether it's our financials, or whether it's the vision or the way we're leading the company, things like that. A lot of that transparency helped tremendously with him. And at first he didn't believe it, but it's that transparency that got him to truly understand, you know what, like what they're telling me is true. I can buy into this. I can believe this. And I think that was one of the major keys that helped turn the corner with him, was him being able to clearly see what he's doing, like how he's impacting the business, what the business is doing, understand where the business's money is going, understand where the business is going, and how he can play into that. But I think the biggest, I will say the biggest concern a lot of people have with millennials is communication. And I don't disagree. You know, obviously I grew up in that as well. And so I can understand that, you know, I can't spell. I for sure can't spell. And pretty much every email I ever send out has typos in it. And that's why we pay our editor a lot of money, because none of us can write properly. So I think there's a lot of technical issues with some of those things, but and the communication styles. But that goes back to me, to leadership, and you know, how do we work on that? And if as leaders we don't spend the time to better that deficiency and to improve upon that, then that's on us. It's not necessarily a flaw in a generation and a flaw in a person. You know, it's a flaw in our leadership styles, and whether or not we've done everything we can to support this talent and to grow the talent. You know, it's looked at, is it a weakness or is it a flaw? You know, a flaw is generally something fatal that's not going to change. But I don't know that I think any of the problems with millennials are flaws. I actually think they're all weaknesses that can be developed and changed.
Erin, can you talk about some of the specific ways that you really try to instill transparency to create trust inside the organization? You know, you mentioned things that all small giants do, but could you drill down on that just a little bit for us?
Sure. I'd say, you know, one of the biggest, which comes as a surprise to, you know, maybe it doesn't come as a surprise because a lot of the people have never worked in other companies, but is the open book management and opening the financials. And I'm not proud to say that we're not great at playing the great game of business, because we love it. We have not perfected it yet, and we're not very good at it. But we're definitely very open with the financials. And so, you know, at our meetings, we do talk about revenues. We talk about our expenses. We talk about our profits. And then when it comes to the profits, what are we going to do with them? And, you know, how are they involved in it? So that's one piece. We also talk about, it's just transparency in terms of actual data and information. You know, recently we talked about our sales. So the way our sales go for the year and our revenue goes for the year is by the end of February, we'll have booked for the year about 80% of our business. And so it feels really good in the beginning of the year when we've got all these proposals and we're signing all these contracts, but you know, how do they know where we're stacking up against the years previous? How do they know whether or not the work they're doing is paying off and bringing in more sales? Well, the only way to know is to have the data in front of you. So making sure they have access to all that information and understanding, you know what, like last year we were only, you know, $20,000 behind where we are now. So while it feels like we're doing really good, we're only slightly ahead, which means we really need to focus on doing more in the future. And that to me, it's less in that case trusting and more of understanding how you impact the company. And so the group of people that I have, and I think most people, you want to know when you've been successful, and you want to be able to see when your work is paying off. And if you can't see the end result and you don't know whether you're succeeding or failing, how can you honestly improve upon that and do a better job and make sure you're doing your best job? So transparency in terms of providing the right kind of data and information, I think, is key. And then the other piece is just transparency. I will also liken to vulnerability. So from a leadership perspective, you know, I think a lot of people don't like to just blindly follow a leader. They're not just going to blindly put their trust in somebody. And so the way you gain trust as a leader, in my opinion, there comes some vulnerability to that. And so it's, you know, when you do make mistakes or when you are struggling with something, you know, it's not always being that stonewall, everything's okay 100% of the time. It's explaining the challenges that you see and the challenges you're facing and the way you think through it, and just being completely honest with them about it. And it helps them really buy into who you are as a leader, which then builds that trust. So when you ask them to jump, they jump, and they don't have to say, well, can I see where I'm jumping? Well, that's what they want. They trust you now. So I think that vulnerability in just being honest and communicating with what you see as a leader, and as well as your strengths and your own weaknesses, has been really important for us.
Erin, in our conversation before this, you had talked about, and just recently you talked about the impact that somebody is having on the company. When you were talking with Michael, how did you communicate the impact that his behavior and that his presence was having on the company?
That was a tough one. And honestly, one of the keys, when he started to realize the impact his energy and his attitude had on other people, it definitely started to move forward in a positive direction. It was just a matter of just reinforcing it and constantly communicating and giving different scenarios. And, there'd be times when we'd be leading a meeting and I had a personal problem before the meeting started. So my energy and my focus wasn't 100% in the meeting. And he'd look at me and be like, okay, that meeting didn't go so well. It didn't feel right. It didn't go so well. Maybe next time you need to think through it more, act differently. It'll be like, okay, well, what was off for you? And it'd be like, well, it just felt like you didn't have a lot of energy, and it felt like you weren't as focused, like your mind was 100 miles away, or, you didn't really want to be participating. And I go, okay, well, how did that impact you? And so it wasn't like I did that on purpose. It was an honest scenario that happened. And afterwards he goes, okay, literally by the end of the conversation, he goes, I get it. I get it now. And so, and it wasn't just one of those incidents with him. It never was just one. It takes multiple incidents like that and communication and just helping him try to understand and realizing that it's not like he's not smart for understanding the first time. It's that he's just struggling with this and you just need to work with him on it. And he needs, for him, he always sees with blinders and he has trouble seeing outside of that. So it takes a lot to kind of knock down those blinders, and understanding that's not a fault of his. Doesn't mean he's not smart. It doesn't mean he's not a good employee. It just means he needs something different than everybody else. So it was just showing some other examples and getting him to see from what he experiences inside of his blinders, and then likening it to the way that he acts with other people. And that kind of helped.
I'll open this up to questions here. I've got plenty of questions that I can ask Erin. Can you tell us a little bit about, we know that kind of this generation, because of the proliferation of technology, email, text, 15 different apps that they use to build relationships with each other, how that communication style kind of erodes trust or doesn't allow trust to develop, and what you do to overcome that so that they're more bought into what you're doing?
Sure. So that's actually one of the things, as I started to think about the biggest challenges we've had with our team, it comes down to that trust. And with our team that we acquired from Tasty, I didn't have to worry about that because they built up all the trust for us. It's like they did all the hard work and then I reaped the benefits. But with the new people that we've had, it's been a lot of lack of trust. And I liken that to the fact that, with the way people communicate nowadays, and with communication being all online, there's only a certain amount of trust we can develop right now looking at each other through video conference. And so if that's how you communicate, and that's kind of how you've developed your friendships and how you've talked to people, how do you truly know how to trust somebody with serious issues? Like, how do you know how to build that relationship and how to build that trust? Because the relationships you have only go so deep into that trust. And so I think that that's a huge issue when it does come to this generation, is that inability or lack of understanding as to what trust is all about and how to go about building that. And so I think they're just it's a little tougher to build that trust because they don't get it, and they don't understand that they don't have it, because they'll look at it and say, sure, I've got relationships with people and I talk to people all the time. And it's like, well, great. How often do you see them? How often do you go out with them? How often do you have face-to-face conversations? How often do you talk about, things that aren't surface level? How often do you talk about important issues in life? And that's when it's like, okay, you know what, I don't do that so frequently. And that's when they start to realize that, okay, maybe I don't understand what building a real relationship is all about.
Great. Thank you, Erin. Jimmy, you had a question.
Quick question here. You build up the trust, and you also said that you guys are managed by millennials. You're a millennial, and you're managing other millennials. How do you think that trust would come from, say, a boomer or Gen Xer as to relating? Do you think that trust is inherent because they already kind of relate because you've got one millennial talking to another millennial? Or do you think it's when you got a boomer talking to a millennial, do you think it's more of a father figure or mother figure trying to manage somebody that is like, I'm not going to listen to my dad or mom, but I'm going to listen to my peers? That's
a great question. And I guess what I believe at the end of the day is that they're going to trust those who put the effort and time into understanding them and helping them grow. So I don't think, I've actually seen recently at one of the companies that I have a pretty good relationship with, they had an old sales director who kind of shut down ideas. A new person came into the company, a millennial, had frequent ideas, and it kind of was just like, no, constantly saying no. And it was like, well, you're not making enough phone calls, and you're not doing enough of this, and you're not doing enough of that. And the new sales director came in, and both of these were not millennials. Neither of them were millennials. The next one comes in who was a boomer, and it was more paying attention to, okay, well, why isn't she making these phone calls? What are her strengths? And can we mind, like, these are great ideas, and maybe they're not all right, but like, she's coming up with ideas. And so he took the time to get to understand her and what she was about. And she turned around. Like, I was one literally 6 months ago to say, you should have fired her right when she started. And now she's like a huge asset next door. And it's all because someone took the time to get to understand her and get to know her. And so I don't think that comes with a generation. And I don't think she looks at it like it's her father next door helping her. I think it's just all about what you do as a leader.
Okay.
Erin, you had talked a little bit about open book management as a way to be a trust builder. But when it comes to the getting to know somebody, getting to learn what their strengths and weaknesses are, how do you approach that?
A lot of trial and error and a lot of paying attention. So, we'll throw a bunch of different projects at people. Everybody likes to be challenged and wants to do more than they did the day before. They want to grow. They want to feel like they're going somewhere in life. And so you throw different projects at different people, and you start to see what they like to do and what they don't like to do, and what they're good at and what they're not good at. And it just comes from trying and having the courage to try, because obviously when you try a project, if it fails, now all of a sudden you got to go back to square one, and it costs you time and it costs you money, and you don't always have that luxury. But trying to find projects where you can afford to try out new people or to try new skill sets and to see if they're there, I think that's just important, because it's important as a business, obviously, because you're trying to get the most out of your team. And if Karen's better at project A than she is at B, then I want her in A. Like, that's where I want her to be. But if I don't give her a try, I'm never going to know that. But as well as making sure that we're challenging the people that we work with, because if you don't give them different projects and you don't start looking for new skill sets or what their strengths are, like I said, they're not going to feel challenged, and you're not going to know what they are. So I just think it's just looking for it too. So it's figuring out, in that scenario with the girl next door, it was like she was really good at following up with and making sure, okay, well, you know what, you only made 4 phone calls and you made 10 phone calls, and keeping track of those things. But she didn't like to make the calls herself. So it's okay. She's a type A personality. She likes to keep people on task. So why not allow everybody else to make more phone calls and take some of that burden off their shoulders and tracking it all and put it on her, because that's what she's good at. And now she feels challenged and she feels like she's doing something good, and everybody else can do what they're good at. So it's just kind of paying attention to what people are succeeding at and failing at and trying to get to the bottom of why. Once again, it goes back to taking that extra time, which, we all don't have the benefit of having, because we're always working in the business, or I would imagine, as well as on the business. And so it becomes tough to spend that extra time working with the people and on the people. But, realistically speaking, that's hands down our most important job.
I was going to say, how do you find the time, or how do you balance the time?
It's a big struggle. And with I think, once again, here's where I don't know whether it's millennials or I don't know if it's just my team, but it requires a lot of time and attention. And it's something that it's one of my biggest weaknesses as a leader is, I want to get my work done, and even the work on the business and the strategy. And when I'm working on a project, I want to, in the morning, I come in early and someone walks in and I can tell something's wrong with them. I just naturally want to finish my project instead of spending the time with them and spending the time to try and understand it, or to help them with their own project and their own problems. Or we had an employee who I could tell was off. Finally, I said, "What's going on? Something's not right." And she said, "I don't feel challenged with what I'm doing anymore." And so it's like, I should have had that conversation with her 2 weeks before I did. So for me, it's just a matter of literally trying to keep track of the conversations that I have, because it's the only way that I can push myself to have more of those conversations, to focus on the people. Because it's not that I don't realize it, but it just is difficult. And, with people that are such go-getters, you need to continue to put those bounds on them, and you need to continue to give them the right resources and to help them and to talk to them and to work with them. And that's when you're going to get the most from them. Like, my team's absolutely incredible, but if I stopped doing all of those things, I think we wouldn't be nearly as good as a company. Like, we need to focus on that to get the most out of who they are.
Very interesting. Tracy, and then we'll go to Jimmy. Tracy.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what Erin says. I totally agree with her. Erin, I'm amazed at your enthusiasm, and very, very, very excited about you being an entrepreneur, and it's just really exciting to see. I know Tom with Tasty Catering, and I actually come from the Cisco Foods background. I was the vice president of marketing for 26 years here in Florida. And I started with Data Connect, who was a customer of mine just a year ago. From the Cisco standpoint, millennials were very few in that corporation. When I came to Data Connect, being with the software company, pretty much the road crew was 100%. There were no boomers. And so when I came in, and I had to first earn the respect, and it took a while. It really took almost a year to work with these fine women and gentlemen that have had the pleasure of actually being on the road with them, and you actually eat, sleep, and live with them under a lot of pressure to do these events. So it was a big challenge for me. I could tell that I was not a part of the group, so to speak, when I first started, and I was challenged with these young kids, and but I learned from them. They have so much. Erin, you all have so much for us as boomers to learn, and you're enthusiastic, and I mean, the knowledge from the technology standpoint is phenomenal. But I think, first of all, just from the experience that I have had for the last year, is earning their trust and communication. And it takes time, because there are challenges between different personalities. And I think you said it really well when you said blinders. When you were talking about Michael, there's blinders, and you have to gauge yourself to get through those blinders as a team to make strides. So, but yeah, thanks. I really enjoyed your comments, Erin. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Tracy. Jimmy.
Okay, so I have 2 kids, and they're night and day different. And so we tend to color these millennials as a group. Yeah, they might have some shared thing, but there's millions of different personalities and such, and they're all individuals, and they don't necessarily all have the same traits, I suspect, at least the ones that work here as well. So how do you distill which ones are keepers for you and which ones aren't? Just because they're necessarily a millennial doesn't necessarily mean they have the right skill set. Just because they're a millennial doesn't necessarily mean they're a programmer or they have a lot of computer skills. They grew up along with a mobile phone in their hand, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they have all the skills that you're looking for. Are you still looking for particular skills, or as such, or is it something you're looking for from that type of the generational background that you're hoping that they have those experiences?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. They definitely all are different, and not, we've only let go. Fortunately, I've only had to let go of one person, and he was a millennial as well. And it's just a matter of culture fit, and I think that's the same across generations. And so it's you can't fix everything, and everything's not going to be right for your company. That's the other thing. So it's not necessarily. There are some times when they're great people and they just don't fit into what you're doing. And we actually had, I actually posed that question to my team in November when we were going through a bunch of issues. And I said, you know what, like, I understand from the creative process that the ideal creative process is that you have 15 people to collaborate with, and you can take 2 weeks and you can design whatever you want, and you can write whatever you want, and you have all of these resources. And, as a person, if that's what you need to feel fulfilled, then this is not the company for you, because we're less of the artsy and more of the let's produce a lot of work type of a thing. Our clients don't need the best looking painting. They need like the C-level painting. That's what they paid for. That's what they need. That's what they can afford. And so it's not to say we don't want to put out our best work, but it's an understanding of this is who we are as a company. And if that's not right for you, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with us. It just means it doesn't work. So I think that no matter what, it comes down to the more you can communicate who you are as a company and be honest and open about who you are, the more you'll be able to start to see whether or not this new hire or this young person can fit into the system. And I think laying it out to them also gives them the chance to see, is this something I want to be a part of?
Thanks.
Erin, you and I had discussed earlier that you have your values on the wall, and you had given a lot of freedom to this group of employees to kind of just to pursue their work. And you're finding that lacked in success. Could you walk us through that a little bit and how you resolved it?
Sure. So I think one of the things that had the biggest impact on me in my work experience is when I started at Tasty Catering, and I had been there, I was just out of college. I had been there for 6 months, and we came to this discussion, and I said, you know what, I think we should have billboards. And they looked at me and they said, like, are you crazy? Like, they're very expensive. There's not a lot of return. And I said, no, really, like, I believe in it. And here's why I believe in it. And they said, you know what, like, that's your circle of discipline. That's your area. So we trust in you. And I was like, excuse me, like, I'm young. I'm just out of college. I don't have any job experience, and you're going to trust me to make this decision. And it goes to the core value, which we adopted from Tasty, which is freedom and responsibility within the core, or in the culture of individual discipline. So it's that idea that we all kind of have this circle we're responsible for, and I trust in you, in your circle, to make the best decisions and to grow it. And it's really important to us as a company because we're small. We have one graphic designer. She can't turn around and talk to 4 other designers and say, well, what do you think on this? Like, I don't know what great design is. I didn't go to school for graphic design. I sure as heck can't help her. So she's in her circle of graphic design. She's responsible to take us forward and to make sure we're up on the latest trends and to do the most possible. And we kind of look to her to be the be all end all. Like, okay, Emily, this is a design piece. If this is what you think is great, then we'll go with it. And so it gave a lot of freedom and a lot of flexibility in terms of well, like, I don't know I don't know the technical parts of SEO. So if this is what you think, then great, like go do whatever you want to do. To give a lot of that freedom. And I started to realize that that was the biggest mistake that I've made. And I did it for 4 full years, giving too much freedom. It came to a point where, there were a lot of mistakes and a lot of things going wrong. And it's like, okay, well, I don't understand why they keep making these mistakes. We've talked about it. What's going on here? And it's like, they're left too much on an island. Like, they want responsibility and freedom, but you can't just be like, gloves off, like, have at it, go do whatever you want, which is, I was pretty proud of the fact that we operated that way. And now looking at it, I'm like, well, you know what? Maybe we should have been a little bit more strict and given a little bit more boundaries and been a little bit more harsh in certain areas of, okay, well, this is the 3rd time we've made this mistake. You know what? Like, I trust in you as a person. I don't think you sabotaged us, but like, you can't do that anymore. Like, that is not acceptable versus, well, just figure out what happened and we'll be fine next time, which is kind of how I was before. So realizing that while they want that freedom and responsibility, and while that really truly helps them grow, which is, like I said, it had the biggest impact on me when someone said that to me, well, this is your area, so you make that decision. You still need to provide some sort of direction and some sort of boundaries, or it's almost just like the energy goes off in too many directions and doesn't know where to go. And if you don't send it in the right, if they don't know where to go, it's not going to turn out right. So that was the one thing with the culture. And then the other cultural revelation we've had recently is that back to these issues that we were having, said, you know what, like, I know I've got great people. Like, I would bet my life on the fact that I have got the right people and I've got great people. They don't like wake up thinking, I don't care whether or not I do my job to the best. They want to. They just weren't doing it. There was a problem. And so, I think the tendency sometimes is to be like, well, you know what? You've just made the same mistake 3 times in a row. Like, that's you as a person. You've got to go. Versus you believe in this company and you've put the company first for multiple years. There's got to be another reason why you're making these mistakes. It's not the people. There's got to be something wrong with the process. And in this case, it was a little bit of the culture and understanding of, you know what, like, these are our values and this is what we believe in, and always moral, ethical, and legal is our first value. But like, how do I know as an individual whether or not I'm living that on a daily basis? What does that mean to me? Like, what does moral and ethical and legal mean? Does it mean, what does treat all with respect mean? Does that mean when a client emails me, I'm going to respond in 48 hours? Or when I'm not going to be at work when I say I'm going to, I make sure I call somebody and tell somebody, because that's treating them with respect. Like, how do I live these values? Because I like them. I buy into what we're doing. I just don't know 100% how to get there. And so we were 70% of the way there with our culture, and we're working on the last 30% now in terms of making it something relatable and something easy for them to live out. It goes back to providing all the right data and helping them understand whether they're succeeding or failing. So they all want to succeed. They want to do the most possible for the company. You just have to help them understand how they can do that on a daily basis.
Have you communicated that this shift and this realization that, listen, in the past it's been a little bit more free for all, and now, like, we're going to help you build some structure so that you can grow around it instead of just going off any direction? How are you communicating this shift?
That was part of the conversation that we had. I just flat out said, like, here's the problem. There's not enough boundaries. There's too much freedom. That is not your fault. I'm the one who set this culture. That rests on my shoulders. Like, I set the environment and I set the tone. And so I did not set you guys up for success. That said, we realize that now we're going to change some things and provide the proper environment. And if you can't succeed in that kind of an environment, then you're going to need to go ahead and leave. And that was an honest conversation. I don't think I've ever had that serious of a conversation with them, where I literally was like, every single one of you, I don't mean this in the mean way, is replaceable. Like, I can get another writer. I can get another website guy. You might be great, but I can find someone else to do your job. Like, it's not that I have the need to hold on to you. I want to hold on to you because I believe in you, but you have to give me back what the company has been giving to you. And so it's starting it with, you know what, like, I realized that I set the tone wrong, but now we're going to course correct. and I need you to help me work on it to make sure we can get where we want to go.
Great. We'll go. Jimmy's been waiting for a little bit. We'll go Jimmy and then Candace. Jimmy, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I keep asking all these questions. So you've got obviously you have a culture there. When you look at and you're scaling up and looking for the next person to come in, are you looking for someone first to fill the culture, or are you looking for somebody who has the same kind of culture and thoughts, or are you looking for the best skill set that you can have in that particular position?
Absolutely, the culture. We just the two cyclists that we brought on, they're writers for us, and they're writing a lot of our content. And neither one of them have English degrees or writing backgrounds. One of them was a nurse before she became a cyclist, and the other one has an economics degree from Vanderbilt. So it's like, and now they're writing marketing content for us. And never in a million years would I have thought that was going to work. But I was like, you know what, like, let's just have a conversation, see what happens. And in that conversation, you know, I think a lot of it does have to do with the fact that they're cyclists. I mean, not to talk a lot about cycling, but a lot of people don't understand how much of a team sport it truly is. And so they understand what hard work and what the right attitude means to a team. And I could tell from a conversation, it was just a video conversation, like a Google Hangout. I could tell from that conversation through the things that they were saying that they were the right fit in terms of attitude. And then it just became okay, well, we like you and we want to try and make this work. Let's see if the skill set can develop, and let's see if the skills work out. And in this case, it totally did. I mean, we lucked out, but they ended up being good writers to begin with and have developed because they love to grow and they love to push themselves. They developed into brilliant writers. So I definitely say culture.
Candace?
So based on what you have learned now with the example that you gave us and some of the other people that you have working for you, your next new hire that you hire that's a millennial, what will you do different in the onboarding process?
Spend more time with them. Back in the people that we brought on was more of the freedom and responsibility. And it's like, okay, well, if you have a question, I expect you're going to ask me, instead of spending that time and helping them and frequently communicating. I think setting regular, frequent meetings and just really spending a lot of time in the training process, which, you know, for a company as small as we are, it's a lot of resources you're devoting towards bringing on a new person. But seen through all of the ups and downs that we've had, that's got to be by far the most important thing. Just spending time, being deliberate about spending time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Thank you very much. And I have to pop off now, you guys. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Great. Thanks, Candace.
Thanks.
So we've got about 4 minutes left. Does anybody have a question they'd like to ask Erin?
I don't want to keep monopolizing, but I have some.
Feel free. Go ahead.
Sorry. So one of the issues I've had in the past, we have a lot of transparency here at our company. In fact, a lot of transparency. But part of that is to make sure that there's not a lot of finger pointing going on when something doesn't go right. And it's like, well, this guy cost us our bonus because they didn't do this or didn't do that. Or more importantly, myself, you made a decision to hire this person that didn't really pan out, and it really cost us some other resources because they have so much input into what we're doing. How do you prevent that from kind of cropping up in your business, to letting other people make decisions for the group? Because in reality, they're making it for the whole group. And if it doesn't go right, how do you kind of mitigate that?
So that definitely is a big piece of the puzzle. And I think, you know, for us, one of the big activities we did that changed the way we operate as a team is going through 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, that book by Patrick Lencioni, and really breaking it down. And it was like our own little book club. And we talked about it and we went through it and we worked on some of those things as a team. I think no matter what, finger pointing and figuring out what went wrong, they're the same thing. To me, it's the intention behind it. So no matter what, when there's a problem, you have to figure out what went on. And if it's because you made a wrong hire, like there's no lens that's going to change the fact that you made a wrong hire, but it's more in the intent, well, it's just all your fault and you cost me everything because you did something wrong, versus, all right, that didn't work. How could we have supported you to change that? Or what could I have done to maybe see that earlier or to have made a difference? And it's realizing that no matter what, you have to figure out what went wrong, but it's the difference in blaming someone versus honestly just trying to discover what went wrong, and what Jim Collins calls the autopsy without blame. And so I think it's just all about the intention and making sure as a leader that when some of those negative comments and feelings start to come up, that you kind of break it down and kind of slow it down and say, you know what, like, it's no one's fault. We're not trying to point a finger here and cause problems. We're just trying to make sure this doesn't happen next time. And it the thing that really helps is when people don't feel defensive, and that goes back down to trusting each other as teammates. And so, you know, if someone's going to tell me and call me out and tell me I did something wrong, I know that they're doing it to make me better and to make the company better, not to rip me down as an individual. And so building that trust amongst your team members can help do an autopsy without blame instead of pointing fingers.
Okay.
We've got time for one more question. I feel like Chris has got something.
What are you going to do when you hire somebody who's not a millennial?
Great question. I'll just go with the younger ones since I take the ones right out of high school, so they'll be in the next generation. I don't know. That's a great question. Obviously, like we've never had a non-millennial on our team. The closest we have is Peggy, who's right at the edge. And I will tell you that there's definitely a difference in her than there is in the rest of the team. And in my opinion, it's not that she's at the end of the millennial range. It's the fact that she's got more job experience. She's worked for other companies. She worked for AT&T. She worked for these big corporate companies. And so she's bringing a lot of different experiences in, and then it's having to sift through that. So while Peggy is a millennial, I feel like working with her has kind of taught me how to, now you've got these people who are bringing in, whether they're not bad habits, but different habits from different cultures and a different way of doing things. And that creates a whole different level of distrust in terms of not believing in what we're saying. So growth and just learning and spending time, you know, the more time, the easier it is to understand.
Okay, well that's it for this one. Check out more Fishbowls exclusively for the Small Giants community at smallgiants.org.